My Lord, before Advocate Nisi, I confirm that I'm standing in for Advocate Mshololo.
Yes, okay,
I've
thank you.
spoken to accused number 5.
All right.
Yes.
Sure. Yes, sir.
As it is the court, my lord. Thank you, sir. Lieutenant Colonel Serrero. Now I'm going to start off with the following. You said, we do not live in a perfect world. Regulations are there to provide guidelines, but they will never be able to to cover all future or potential circumstances which may arise. Do you remember that?
I remember.
Thank you.
Uthe wena asihlali emhlabeni ophelele. Kusho ukuthi ke le mthetho nqubo esetshenziswayo ama regulations kukhona la ihamba ifike ingakwazi ukuthi senze khona thiya.
Now, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my lord. Now, you're saying this in the context of a ballistic examination, that's so.
Lokhu kukhulumela mayelana ne ballistic kanjani?
In fact, when you said that it was within the context of a ballistic examination, that's all, or ballistic context.
It applies to everything in general.
Hayi lokhu kusebenza empilweni yona.
It also applies to ballistic examination.
Yesebenza ke na sekuhloleni kwe-ballistic.
The word ballistic examination, I do not know what actually you imply because it's too broad. I don't know whether it is ballistics in respect of with respect to the collection of evidence or the processing of the scene or the microscopic examination, what actually reference is made to.
Manje uma ukhuluma ngeballistic ukhuluma ngento ebanzi kakhulu, angazi ukuthi ukhuluma ukuhlolwa kwenhlamvu kuqoqa ke imbukiso ekhona endaweni yesigameko ukwenza umsebenzi ukucwaninga khona lapha. Ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi ukhuluma ngani.
Lieutenant Colonel Sirere, you for sure not here as a medical expert, not so.
Awuzile lana njengochwepheshe wezempilo kunjani?
That is correct.
Yebo kunjani?
You are also not here as a meteorological engineer, not so.
Awuzile ngomazi ngezezulu kunjani?
That is correct.
Yebo kunjani?
You are also not here as an aviation expert, not so.
Awuzile ngowazi kakhulu ngamabhanoya kunjani?
That is correct.
But you here as a ballistic expert, not so.
Uzelana njengochwepheshe ballistic kunjani?
That is correct.
Yebo kunjani?
Therefore, we do not live in a perfect world. Regulations are there to provide guidelines, but they will never be able to cover all future or potential circumstances which may arise. These are words that came from a ballistic expert, not so.
Lamazwi ukuthi ke sihlale emhlaleni ophelele nokuthi kukhona izimo imithetho nqubo esiyisebenzisayo engafinyeleli kuzona. Akubona amazwi akho yini la wakhiphile?
That is correct. They were uttered by a ballistics analyst in response to the question that was posed yesterday.
Yebo lama gama la kisho uchwepheshe ballistic ephendula umbuzo obubuziwe so.
And that question related to ballistic expertise, not so.
But that was in response to a question by Advocate Mshololo regarding the conduct of Lieutenant Colonel Mangena by collecting the firearm himself at Cleveland Police Station. And the witness then answered, in that way that, you can't make provision for each and every situation. That was the context in which he gave this, not in the context of ballistic evidence, as my learned friend seems to to imply.
These words were uttered by a ballistic expert within the context of ballistic expertise, not so.
Namazwi lawa akhishwa uchwepheshe weze-ballistic kukhulunywa ngeindaba eziphathelene nokuhlolwa kweyinhlamvu i-ballistic, akunjalo?
Yeah, but I cannot agree to that because ballistics has got different areas. So this answer was specific to a specific question that was asked.
Angeke ngiphendule lapho ngoba uma sikhuluma nge-ballistic kunento eziningi eziphathelene nayo. Le mpendulo lena nginike ngiphendula umbuzo oqondile ebengibuzwa wona.
I'm coming there. I just wanted us to clear the path so that as we go along, we don't confuse issues. Do you understand?
Bengifuna nje ukuthi sizwane singakaqhubekeli phambili ukuze singaxakani.
I understand, but the context is very important.
Yebo ngiyakuzwisisa kodwa ukuthi lo mbuzo ubuzwephi nempendulo ipendule kusiphi isimo kusemqoka nalokho.
Surely the context was not within an aviation context. This was within a ballistic context.
Mr. Yes, please. This witness says when he uttered those words, they were with a particular reference and context. And the context, if I recall, is that it was being put to him regarding whether it is proper for exhibits to be booked by a policeman who subsequently does not go and register those exhibits at the center and just proceeds in examining them. Am I quoting you correctly?
That is correct, my lord.
Yes, it was in that specific context about Manganyi having gone to Cleveland police station and having taken the alleged firearm and the alleged 2 bullets and other bullets which were in a blue container, etc. And he signed for them there instead of collecting them at the reception center, according to Ms. Mshololo. And this is the context in which the colonel uttered those words. Specified, not any other thing. That is the context. It was about Manganyi allegedly taking exhibits from Cleveland police station which were not bound up and continuing to examine them.
My lord, I said I'm coming there, but we're taking
Yeah,
it
but you're
step by
asking this
step.
witness about the words he used. And he is trying to say that is the context. So where are we going to?
I'm saying, my lord, I'm coming there. But for starters, we need to clear the path. May I then proceed?
Yeah.
Irrespective of the context that I'm forced to get into before I can get into it. Is this a philosophy, a creed or ethos that are shared by the Ballistic Forensic Science Laboratory in South Africa as a whole, or it is just your own thinking?
Manje-ke lokhu kuyindlela ni zimisele ngayo iyona ethos esetshenziswayo yini lapha mhlambe-ke asithi-ke indlela yokucabanga yokubuka izinto lapha kwa-ballistic.
My answer is based on Ballistic South Africa.
Okay.
We have procedures in respect of the work that we do. As I have already explained, that there may be situations that fall outside that procedure.
Akunenqubo lesisebenzisayo lapha emsebenzini khona ke izinto ezingenziwe ezingaphandle kwaleyo nqubo esisebenzisayo.
That may require a particular or a specific course of action to be taken.
Lapho ke kungadingeka ukuthi kube nendlela okwenziwa ngayo ukulandelela ukuthi lokho akukho kule nqubo esetshenziswayo.
That is what I said yesterday.
Yilo ebengichaza zona.
Lieutenant Colonel, the question was a very simple one. Is this the philosophy of the Forensic Science Laboratory in South Africa, or this is your own thinking? It's just your own individual philosophy?
Lona umcabango wakho wena uwedwa noma ke umcabango wendlela okubhekwa ngayo abasenza kwa ballistic bonke?
I do not operate as an individual. I operate within the system of rules.
Angisebenzi ngedwa kodwa ngisebenza ngaphansi kwemithetho.
So in the context of that answer, what is the direct answer to my question?
Yini impendulo yakho kulombuzo wami?
The answer to your question is that we are rule bound, but there may be circumstances which are not provided for.
Yebo sinemithetho esibusayo kodwa ke kukhona ke izimo lapho ke lemithetho engafinyeleli kuzo.
Let's cut it very short. So this is a philosophy that is shared in the entire fraternity of the Forensic Science Laboratory, particularly the ballistic section thereof here in South Africa.
Shithi yona philosophy esisetshenziswayo yini ngabasenza ngaphansi kwe-ballistic izwe lonke?
That is not my words.
Akuyona amagama ami lawo.
Hayibo, Colonel. These words came from you. Were you representing the Forensic Science Laboratory when you said these words, or this was just your words, your own individual words?
One of the witnesses already answered it.
And what was the answer? The state say the witnesses already answered, and what was the answer? What is the answer? Because you say those are not my words.
More than one time, Smlot, he
What
said
was the answer?
he's rule bound. He doesn't operate on his own. He's operate within the rules laid down by Ballistic South Africa.
I did not get the answer, my lord, because the witness is... It's simple. I'm asking him a very simple question, Lieutenant Colonel Serrero. You said these words within a particular context. For a moment, let us agree. You said them within a particular context because of a particular question. But the question that I'm asking you is, these words which you said in that particular context, do they represent the entire fraternity of the Forensic Science Laboratory in South Africa, the ballistic section thereof, or this just your own individual answer? In other words, would Forensic Science Laboratory South Africa come here, the ballistic section, and say, yeah, no, we share the same sentiment in respect of that answer? Or they will say, no, not in our name. Simple as that.
Amagama uthe wakhiphe ngaphansi kwesimo esithize uphendula umbuzo othize. Kodwa kumbuzo wami ukuthi ke iyona yini indlela emele indlela okusetshenzwa ngayo kwa ngaphansi kwe-ballistic section yesi-National Forensic Laboratory. Uma abantu base-National Ballistic Section uma bengeza la abase-National Forensic Laboratory beza la bazosho bathi le ndlela ekusetshenzwa ngayo le.
I'm not going to answer this question with a yes or no. What I can say is that we are rule bound.
Engeke ngakwenza ukuthi ayeke ngiphendule ngithi yebo noma cha kodwa ngizosho ukuthi thina ke sisebenza ngaphansi kwemithetho.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. You will not answer this question. Thank you. Now, you said, you gave this answer or you uttered these words within a context of some exhibits which were fetched at Cleveland by Mangena. Not so?
Phendulelo mbuzo njengokusho ukuthi uphendule umbuzo emva kokuthi ubuzo umbuzo mayelana nokuthi uKolonel Mangena wahamba wayothatha imibukiso eCleveland. Unjani?
Yes, that was in relation to the question relating to the fetching of the firearm.
Yebo lokho kuhambelana nokulanda kwakhe isibhamu.
Thank you. Now, before we get there, is it correct that you said, in circumstances where an exhibit is brought to the forensic science laboratory by a member from the local criminal record center, an investigating officer, or their agent, in a seal, not a seal, in a bag, the seal thereof that is broken, Forensic Science Laboratory of South Africa will not admit that exhibit, not so?
Awusho yena ukuthi makukhona ke okulethwa ovela kwa CRC noma umseshi noma ke obamele eletha ngesikhwama ke esesivuliwe nina kwa National Forensic Laboratory angeke nisamukele lo mbukiso.
Yes, ordinarily we will not accept it.
Yebo ngendlela ejwayelekile angeke siyamukele
unless it is of a nature that it cannot be sealed.
Ngaphandle kuma ukuthi ke ngalendlela ukuthi ke ayingeke ukwazi ukuthi sivalisiswe leso sikhwama.
Like a bonnet of a motor vehicle, for example.
Njengo mhlambe ke sikhulume ngento enjenge moto bonnet yemoto.
Thank you. A tire as well, as you said.
Netire njengoba ushilo.
That is correct.
Yebo.
And a door, as you said.
Nesicapha njengoba ushilo.
That is correct.
Yebo.
And many other objects which are of a big nature. For instance, a bicycle itself, a motor bicycle, even a car itself.
Nezinye ke izinto ezinkulu asithi ke bicycle noma isithuthu anginjalo.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Now, in the context of what you've just said, I gather that there are certain objects which, by regulation, the procedures and protocol from the forensic science laboratory, when they are to be submitted to the laboratory, they need to be packed in sealed bags, not so?
Ngibona sengathi khona izinto ezifanele zifakwe esikhwameni ezivalisisiwe sealed bags uma ziyiswa National Forensic Laboratory akunjalo.
That is correct.
Yebo kunjalo.
What is the rationale for that? Why is that so? Why should those items that are capable of being packed into sealed bags, that they should be packed in sealed bags and the bags thereof should be sealed? Why is that necessary?
Yini ke isizathu sokuthi imibukiso le ifanele ifakwe esikhwameni esivalisisekayo siphinde sivalisiswe?
It's just to protect the integrity of the exhibit.
Hayi ukuthi ke ugcina ke ukuthi ungaguquguquleki kombukiso lo.
Now you'll have to explain, what do you mean the integrity of the exhibit?
Because uthini uma ukhuluma ngokungaguquguquleki kombukiso?
To make sure.
Now I'm going to request you to explain. You see, now you're free to explain.
Manje ke ngicela ukuthi ujule kule ncazelo ozoyiletha.
It's just to ensure that we don't have things which are added to that exhibit or subtracted from that exhibit.
Okwenletha ke isiqiniseko sokuthi angeke kube nokunganezezelwa noma kususwe kulowo mbukiso
or any tempering.
Noma ke kube nenye indlela yokuguqula lo mbukiso ngaphandle.
Thank you. Now, those are the reasons why those items that are capable of being packed in specific sealed bags would not be accepted in an event that that protocol is not followed, not so?
Kusho ukuthi ke uma kungenjalo lo mbukiso lo angeke uamukelwe kanjalo.
That is correct.
Yebo kunjalo.
Thank you. Now, are there any specific exceptions to what you have just explained now? In respect of those items that are capable of being packed in specific seal bags?
Kukhona ke yini okuvunyelwa ukuthi kungalandeleli ke lemigomo?
I do not understand the question. I've already made examples of situations which may call for exceptions, but I may not be able to cover all of them.
Benguzwisisi ke lo mbuzo ngoba bese ngichazela ukuthi iziphi izinto ezingeke zakwazi ukuthi silandele le mithetho le esisebenza ngayo. Angazi ukuthi
No, the question is very simple. It's very simple. We're now speaking about items that are capable of being packed in specific seal bags, which when submitted to the forensic science laboratory, they need, the seal of those sealed bags need to be sealed before forensic science laboratory accept them. Otherwise, they will not be accepted. Now the question is there an exception to that rule?
Engibuzayo ukuthi khona izinto ezingabophelwa ezingabophezela ukuthi zilandelele le mithetho.
We do receive firearms that come to the forensic science laboratory for testing for the purpose of IDs.
Yebo sesithola izibhamu ezilethwe lapha laboratory ukuthi zizohlolwa.
And when they come, they are not sealed.
Masisa lapho ke azilethwa ngesikhwama esibhalisisiwe.
And then I can make example
Yes.
with another case again.
Ngingenza ke mhlambe sibonelo ngelinye icala.
Yes, proceed.
which was examined by Mr. Dave Peters, who was in this court.
Ukuthi khona kwahlolwa ke ubaba uDave Peters so webekhona kule nkantolo.
Proceed.
Steel trommels of fire containing firearms were transported from Marikana, in the Marikana case.
Masikhuluma ngecala laseMarikana khona izibhamu ezazingekho isikhwameni.
They were conveyed to the lab in trommels and they were not sealed individually.
Zathwalwa ke zifakwe kwitromela kusho ukuthi ke ilesi sikhwama esenziwa ngentsimbi kodwa ke zasingabekiwe ngasinye esikhwameni sazo.
Yes.
So in that case we didn't have the seals that reference is made to.
Thank you.
Manje ngalesi sikhathi ke sasingenazo zonke inamba zokuvalisisa.
That is why I say there may be other situations that I might not be able to remember.
Yebo yikho ngisho ukuthi khona izimo engeke ngakwazi ukuzikhumbula.
Now, you're making reference to the Marikana incident. That could have involved more than 50 firearms, not so?
Masikhuluma ke ngele lokuyiqalele leseMarikana. Sikhuluma ukuthi kwakuyibhamu ezingaphezulu kwamashumi ayisihlanu kunjani.
And actually, it has just been brought to my attention by my colleague, Mr. Ramusupeli, that that case involved more than 600 firearms.
Ngisanda ukutshelwa ukuthi lelo cala lele lali nezibhamu ezingaphezulu kwamakhulu ayisithupha.
Whether it involves 600 or 1,000, it is an exception to the general rule. I'm just indicating an exception to the general rule.
Nanoma ke ukuthi zazi iyikhulu noma zazi inkulungwane kodwa zikhombisa ukuthi ke kwakusekuphunywe kule mgomo le nemithetho elandelwayo.
Thank you. But you will not equate that situation or that incident where a single firearm is involved, not so?
Kodwa ngeke ukufanise lokho nalapho ke ekusetshenziswa lapho ke sikhuluma ngesibhamu esisodwa kunjani.
If I consider, because in this answer I'm going to be specific, not generic.
Ikule impendulo engizoqonda ngqo angeke ngikhulume kabanzi.
Because Lieutenant Colonel Mangena's affidavit was brought to my attention yesterday.
Ngoba ke i-affidavit ka Colonel Mangena ngikhonjiswe yona izolo.
In his affidavit, he states the reason why he followed that particular course of action.
Kule affidavit yakhe uchazile ukuthi yini indaba enze ngalendlela enza ngayo.
Now, just before you proceed, which affidavit are you talking about?
Yiphi ke le affidavit okhuluma ngayo singaqhubeki?
I do not remember the exhibit number of that affidavit?
Angekho mbuleka ukuthi inombolo yalo mbukiso ithini.
No, but look, Lieutenant Colonel, the question that I've asked you was, you had referred to an incident at Marikane where Mr. Peterson had to go and collect and use a trommel. And you collected more than 600 firearms. Now that is an exception to the rule. It does not need any particular expertise to understand that that was an exception. But I'm specifically asking you, would you then say, in fact, the question that I asked you is, do you then realize that that example that you gave relating to 600 firearms is different from a case that involves only one firearm?
Umbuzo wami ukuthi njengoba usubekile isibonelo sase Marikana la kunezibhamu eze amakhulu ayisithupha uyabona yini ukuthi akekho ongaboni ukuthi yebo leso simo isimo esasingajwayelekile kodwa ke lapha sikhuluma ngesibhamu esisodwa awukwazi ukulinganisa lezi zinto ezimbili.
And has not even come.
We said to the witness, this witness,
Yes, as a court, please, my lord. The witness has already answered that. He said the number doesn't matter. It's about the principle.
But this witness in particular, I'm listening. He says he will be more specific. He won't now answer generic. He will be specific in the sense that yesterday he was shown the affidavit of Mangena. So you can tell us about that. Now you want to know which affidavit is that. Mangena made 3 or 5 affidavits, fine. But he is specific to a particular affidavit which he wants to extrapolate the example which he says is an exception. Am I being understandable?
No.
That is correct, my lord.
No, my lord, that is not what I'm asking. The simple question that I'm asking him, does he then realize that when a person is dealing with more than 600 firearms, which the general rule would normally be relaxed, is different from a situation where only one firearm is involved? I'm not asking him to go into Mr. Mangena's affidavit because I've not even started to talk about Mangena. I don't understand where Mangena's affidavit feature in my question. I'm still coming if I will ever get there. But now answer what I'm requesting you to give answers to. Answer the asked.
As a court, please, that's where our objection comes in, that the witness has already answered that. He said it doesn't matter whether it's 1,000 firearms, the number doesn't matter. It's about the principle.
No, but me, I'm concerned about this witness. He's an experienced witness, 29 years or 27 years as a ballistic expert. He wants to respond to you, Mr.
Nisi.
Yes.
Yes.
And you're trying to stop him.
I'm not stopping him.
Okay, just
I'm saying let him answer directly my question, my lord. I'm not stopping him.
What you wanted to answer, you.
Okay, no, it's fine.
Mangena's affidavit.
Mr. Ngube wants to see me, my lord.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you. Thank you, my lord. Lieutenant Colonel, just before we proceed on the issue of that trommel container, I've got instructions that, or it is being brought to my attention that even if that trommel is used, upon collection of those firearms, it gets locked and it gets sealed. In other words, they like a container, they're shipping containers. They just don't drive around willy-nilly without them having been locked and sealed properly. Those are the instructions that have been given to. In other words, upon collection, I see the court is, I don't know whether it's laughing or smiling.
Because
Yes.
this is direct evidence. I hope we shall hear it later. That they are sealed. Those 600 plus, they were sealed. Maybe we shall hear it later about that. And not transported willy-nilly.
Yes, my lord.
Yeah, fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the expert that is involved, our expert,
Yes.
was
That's
the
why I
person
said-
that was involved.
That's why I say we
Yes.
shall hear, because I listened, it
Yes.
says Dick.
Yes,
Derek
ma'am.
is the Dick, the expert who was here.
Dave Peters.
Dave is the one who
Yes.
collected them. That's why
Yes.
I said he will tell us, of course.
Yes. That is the information that I'm requested to bring across you. But back to my question. There's a difference between 600 firearms and one firearm, not so?
Umbuzo wami kuwena uthi kukhona lehlobo khona phakathi kwezibhamu eziyamakhulu ayisithupha nesibhamu esisodwa.
That is correct. There's a difference.
Yebo, ukhona umehluko.
Thank you.
But the circumstances that I'm referring to, the circumstances are not only based on quantities.
Izimo ke lezi azibheki kuphela ubuningi.
There could be other developments or other things in the matter.
Thank you.
Kukhona ezinye izinto ezingaba khona kuleso simo.
So if I use the word circumstances, it should not be interpreted only in terms of the number or the quantities of firearms. There could be other things as well.
Usho ukuthi uma ngikhuluma ke ngezimo singabheki kuphela ubuningi besibhamu kodwa sibheke nokuthi ke khona yini ezinye izinto ezingangena lapho eziyizimo.
You know, Lieutenant Colonel, now you continue to give another explanation. I'm going to ask you, if the view that you are expressing now, it's a view that is shared by the Forensic Science Laboratory of South Africa, or it's your own personal view? And you are going to tell me about rules and protocols and procedures. And I'm going to request you to bring those rules, which state those exceptions.
The rules cannot
You have
state-
said they are voluminous. They can be transported here by truck. There's no problem. The question is, the view that you have expressed now, is it your own personal view or it's a view that is also held by the Forensic Science Laboratory of South Africa?
I'm expressing the view based on a particular scenario that was given to me.
Ngibuzayo kona ukuthi indlela okusetshenzwa ngayo yini National Forensic Laboratory noma ke indlela wena obona ngayo athi silandelela imithetho.
I'm going to proceed. It is so that this court has heard that Mr. Mangena went to Cleveland to collect a firearm, which he ultimately used to do his own testing. But the nub of what he says in his collection of that firearm is the fact that he got that firearm in an open seal bag. Comma, you can respond.
Manje sikhuluma ngokuthi ke Lieutenant Colonel Mangena waye Cleveland wayothatha isibhamu. Kodwa ke esibhekisisa kakhulu la kulokhu ukuthi wathola lesi sibhamu sisesikhwameni esingavalisisile.
Do you understand?
Yangizwisisa?
I hear you.
Ngiyakuzwa.
Now, and we're talking about one firearm. Do you understand?
Sikhuluma ngesibhamu esisodwa la ngisizwa.
I understand.
Yes.
Normally when firearms are transported, when one firearm is taken to the Forensic Science Laboratory, is it not a protocol that it needs to be in a seal bag?
Kanti akuyona yini indlela inqubo ekusetshenzwa ngayo ukuthi uma isibhamu sisuswa siyiswa eNational Forensic Laboratory sifanele sihambe nesikhwama esivalisisayo?
Because these questions are based on the work that was done by Lieutenant Colonel Mangena, not myself.
Yes.
So I do not have all the reasons that Mangena had to take that particular course of action. I do not have the details of what he considered, everything regarding that decision. I do not have access to
I'm
that.
going to tell you the details.
Njengoba-ke lapha ngizophendula umbuzo ukhuluma ngento eyenziwa uMangena, angizazi izathu zonke zokuthi yini indaba wenza ngale ndlela eyenza ngayo, futhi anginayo nemininingwane ukuthi ngingakwazi ukuphendula ephelele.
Thank you. That I understand. But now, the general rule is forensic science laboratory will only accept a firearm that is contained in a sealed bag, not so. That's a general rule.
Manje umthetho ojwayelekile uthi-ke i-National Forensic Laboratory iyamukela imibukiso esesikhwameni ezivalisisiwe.
It's a general rule if we exclude all other circumstances.
Yebo, umthetho olandelwayo uma ukuthi singeke sizinake noma sizibheke zonke ezinye izimo ezingaba khona.
The answer is yes, it is a general rule.
Yes.
Thank you.
Impendulo ke ukuthi yebo, umthetho ojwayelekile wathi yebo.
Now, this is the background of what you seem to be avoiding. Mr. Mangena went to Cleveland to actually this firearm that he went to fetch from Cleveland is a firearm that one of his colleagues, Rulofs, worked on earlier. And after he conducted his test, he sealed it in a specific sealed bag. And you said immediately after tests are done in a specific firearm, it gets sealed in a sealed bag, not so?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Wena-ke ukuthi lesi sibhamu esikhuluma ngaso sake sasihlolwa warrant officer Rulofs. Uthi-ke wathi meseqeda ukusihlola lesi sibhamu wasesifaka-ke esikhwameni esivalisisekayo.
Now, thank you. Firearm was taken back to where it came from. That is Cleveland police station.
Lesi sibhamu ke sasisiphindiselwa la esasithathwe khona eCleveland.
I hear that.
Ngiyakuzwa.
Now there's evidence that was led that firearm was destined for destruction.
Kukhona ubufakazi obulethiwe bokuthi leso sibhamu lesi kwahloswe ukuthi sizoyochithwa noma sizoyodestroy.
But before it could go for destruction, some information emerged that that particular firearm could as well be linked with another sin, which is the case that we're speaking about now.
Kwasekutholakala ukuthi lesi sibhamu lelo kungenzeka ukuthi sake sisetshenziswa nakwenye indawo njengoba sikhona la.
And then Mr. Mangena went there to fetch it.
Hayi ngoba Mangena wasehamba kuyosilanda.
Upon his receipt of the firearm, he realized that that seal bag in which Mr. Rulofs sealed that firearm, the seal was broken.
Wasethola ukuthi lesi sibhamu sasesifakwe esikhwameni lesi uRolofs yena ayazi ukuthi isikhwama esivalisisiwe kodwa thola ukuthi sesivuliwe.
Do you understand the scenario up to that far?
Yes, sesifika la.
Up to this far, I'm following.
Thank you.
Ngiyakulandela.
Thank you, Colonel. Now, there was I think it's Captain Charlie, who was the custodian of those firearms.
Ngicabanga ukuthi khona uCaptain Njalo uyena owayephethe lezi sibhamu.
Now, his testimony is to the effect that yes, he had to follow certain protocols with regard to the destruction of those firearms and all those instructions that he had to comply with. But pertinently, that firearm, in fact, he said he could not have received a firearm that he should have dealt with, which was not in a sealed bag, or the back of which, the seal of which was broken, despite the fact that that firearm was destined for destruction.
Uthi yena wengeke asamukele isibhamu makuwukuthi ke lesi sikhwama esasikusona lesi sibhamu sasingavalisekile noma esithi umlomo walesi sikhwama wawungasavulile.
And his evidence further is to the effect that at all material times when this firearm was in his possession, it was sealed. The back was sealed.
Uthi ngaso sonke isikhathi isikhwama lesi masezandleni zakhe isikhwama lesi lesi sibhamu esasifakwe kusona sasivalisisiwe.
Now when asked as to how did it then happen that Mangena would come and collect a bag, a firearm that was enclosed in a sealed bag that was broken, he said he could not answer that.
Manje ke uMangena sakwazanga ukuchaza ukuthi yini indaba yena amukele isibhamu esisesikhwameni esingavalisisiwe.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ngoba, it's not Mr. Mangena who could not explain. It is Mr. Muchali. When asked as to why would then Mr. Mangena state that the firearm that he received at Cleveland was packaged in a broken seal.
No, umtshali ke lo obechaza ubephendula ukuthi akazi ukuthi uMangena wayesamukela kanjani isibhamu esisesikhwameni esingavalisisiwe.
But nonetheless, Mr. Mangena took that firearm, took it to the Forensic Science Laboratory and proceeded to conduct his examination.
Nanoma kunjalo ke uMangena wasithatha leso sibhamu wahamba naso National Forensic Laboratory wafika wayosihlola.
Forensic Science Laboratory South Africa does not accept, and Mr. Mangena is a senior member of the Forensic Science Laboratory, not so?
Futhi ke National Forensic Laboratory ayizamukeli izinto ezingekho ekhwameni ezivalisisiwe. Futhi ke Lieutenant Colonel Mangena omunye wabasebenza kule laboratory abasezingeni eliphezulu akunjalo.
Do you understand up to this far?
I understand.
Yazwisisa.
In the circumstances which have just been sketched now, yourself being a member of the Forensic Science Laboratory of South Africa, was procedure followed?
Joba nawe omunye osenza lapha National Forensic Laboratory inqubo ilandelwe yini?
My answer cannot be detached completely from what happened at that time.
Yes.
Cha impendulo yami angeke ichezuke kuloko bese kubekile.
Okay, let us categorize your answer. On the phase of it, prima facie, was procedure followed?
Cha sikhulume nje ukuthi ke uma sesibuka kafushane inqubo ilandela.
The generic procedure in the SAPS was followed.
Kushuthi ke inqubo ejwayelekile siphoyiseni yona yayilandela.
Why I'm saying so is because the firearm, according to information that has just been supplied to me now, Mangena did not just go to the station, took the firearm and left with it.
Ngoba ke kulo lwazi lokho esenginikwe lona uMangena akazange aya lapha e-police station wafika nje wathatha isibhamu wahamba.
He booked it at the police station.
Ufike ke wabhalisa ukuthi uyasikhipha.
Which means that he completed the SAP 13 or the exhibit register at that particular station.
Ukuthi ke lapho wagcwalisa SAP 13 noma ke ile register kubhalwa kuyona izinto e-police station.
I can tell you that is not in dispute.
Cha lokho akunampikiswano ngakho.
So I was just explaining regarding the generic police procedure. Not the forensic procedure, the generic police the procedure actually that empowers a police officer to do certain things.
So sakhuluma nje ngenqubo ke gunyaza iphoyisa ukuthi lenze ngendlela ethize.
No, good, you are together there.
Yeah, sisonke la.
So in terms of the police protocol, he is entitled, he is able to book it out.
Njengoba ke iphoyisa unemvume ukuthi angasikhipha ngaleyo ndlela.
We together is
However, I'm going to admit that there was a slight deviation from the normal course.
Kodwa ke ngizovuma ukuthi kuqhubeka kwaba khona ukuthezuka kule nqubo ejwayelekile.
With respect to the ordinary forensic science procedure.
Ukuthi ke le inqubo esetshenziswa ku forensic laboratory yona khona la engalandelwanga khona ngendlela ejwayelekile.
Thank you, sir.
That is why I wanted to refer to Mangena's affidavit.
Yikho ke bengifuna ukuthi ngikhulume ngeaffidavit kaMangena.
No, that's not my duty to request you to refer to Mangena's affidavit. He has been there. The state should have requested him to refer to his affidavit.
Cha kona umsebenzi wami ukuthi ngikuthuma ukuthi hambe uyobuka affidavit kaMangena ube khona la umshushisi bekufanele kuyena othi akabheke affidavit yakhe.
I'm happy with your answer though. Thank you.
But I've already indicated that my answer should not be divorced from the circumstances that existed.
Ngithi ke impendulo yami ayingakhishwa kulezi simo zazikhona ngaleso sikhathi.
Which circumstances you do not know?
No, I cannot just give
Ukuthi leso simo nawe awuzazi.
those circumstances are in the affidavit. Some of them are in the affidavit that I've seen yesterday.
Engeke lesi simo ikhona lapha kule affidavit engiyibone iso.
My question is not based on whether circumstances are in the affidavit or not. I'm on a specific point of procedure. And we have stated very well that there was a deviation from the known procedure. It is documented, it is on record. No matter how much you try to justify what happened there, your word that there was a deviation from normal procedure stands. And I'm going to request you, sir. You know, sometimes they say experts are what they are called hired guns. You see, I perceive your responsibilities as standing there as not being a hired gun, not so.
Can I please ask you to say all of that in chunks?
Bit by bit. Thank you. I am saying your answer that there was deviation from the known procedure is already on record.
Impendulo yakho ukuthi ke kube khona ukuthezuka kule nqubo ejwayelekile sekuqoshiwe.
Now, it doesn't matter how much you try to justify what could have happened in this case because you're not privy to the facts of what happened at Cleveland.
Wena ke awukwazi ke ukuthi ungasichazela ukuthi usuke kuloko osekubekiwe ngoba ulwazi lwakho alifinyelele ekutheni ukwazi ukuthi kwenzekani eCleveland.
And my final note on that regard was, I hope you are not there. We are not standing there as a hired gun because in certain circumstances, experts would be referred to what is known as them being hired guns. I perceive your responsibility is standing there as a responsibility to try and assist the court.
As a good please, my lord. Well, firstly, I think the word hired gun is inappropriate to this witness. It implies something nefarious. This witness is under oath and he's here to assist the court. But secondly, my lord, the witness has given a twofold answer to my learned friends. He said there's a generic procedure in the South African police and that procedure has been complied with. He then said in the forensic world, perhaps there was a slight deviation, and he wanted to refer to the affidavit of Lieutenant Colonel Mangena, but my learned friend seizes that one aspect and doesn't look at the answer of the witness in totality. We submit, my lord, that that's unfair. The witness should be allowed to elaborate on his answer, and my learned friend cannot just seize one aspect of his answer and focus solely on that, my lord. must be looked to in totality.
Thank you, my lord. Let me quickly respond. A witness is not there to elaborate. He's there to answer my questions. If the state feels the need that there's something that he wants to pursue after my cross-examination, re-examination is still coming.
Are you saying a witness is not allowed to elaborate? This is an expert.
Understand, my lord. I am giving this response.
His profession and knowledge and proficiency
Yes.
entitles him to elaborate. Now you're saying he mustn't elaborate, he must just come and give evidence like me.
My lord, I am saying,
Please.
I am responding to what my learned colleague from the state is saying, that the witness must elaborate. I am saying he will only elaborate if I request him to elaborate, as I've did earlier on. But for now is to give me direct answers. If the state feels that there's a gap that they want to close subsequent to this cross-examination by requesting him to elaborate, they can do that through re-examination.
Colonel, in this court, if you are asked a question, you are entitled to answer it in the manner you think you should answer it. If that answer is relevant, Mr. Nisi will argue later that your answers were irrelevant. But in this court, no witness should be gagged. No witness should be gagged. If he wants to elaborate, let him elaborate. I don't know what he wants to elaborate and say, but you can't stop him to.
My lord, as I'm saying, I'm responding to the state's objection.
Okay,
if the state wants him to elaborate subsequent to issues that have been raised under cross-examination, they will have re-examination where they will request this witness to elaborate. I can also not be gagged, my lord, in the course of my cross-examination.
No, you're not.
Yes.
Obviously not.
Thank you,
And
my
you know
lord.
what? The funny thing is, you are telling this witness that there are certain aspects of the evidence which he's not aware of, which is true.
Yes.
But now he says the affidavit of Mangena was brought to his attention yesterday. Now he wants to elaborate on that aspect, as I understand him, because he has said that generically he has responded to the question. But there are a myriad, which he says, a myriad of exceptions or exceptional circumstances which may color his answer. Am I right, sir?
That is correct, my
Or
lord.
I'm just sitting somewhere.
No, that is correct, my lord.
I'm not
And then,
against...
for instance,
Yes.
then he mentioned one, for instance, aspect which falls under the generic of what normally happens. He says bullets which, for instance, are placed in the IBIS center. Some of them come there without being encased in exhibit bags.
No, my lord, I did not ask him about bullets. I've always been referring him to a
No, this is what
firearm.
he's, no, Mr. May I listen?
Okay.
This is what he says as an expert. He says one of the deviations is bullets which are stored in the IBIS center. They are brought in there without being in containers or in evidence bags. Are you not saying that, sir?
I was referring to firearms, my lord.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, firearms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, my lord. But nonetheless, if the state feels that there is something that they want to clear with this witness, it be Mangena's affidavit or what, the state will have an opportunity to make a follow-up on that when they re-examine this witness. The law is very clear.
Okay, let's proceed, please.
Thank you, my lord. Now, I'm a bit... I need to reshape my mind, my lord. I'm going to request the court to bear with me as I try to reshape my mind. Thank you, sir. Now we sort of had exhausted this Cleveland thing, the bullet thing that was fetched from Cleveland in an open seal bag. Now, we are in the premises of the South African Forensic Science Laboratory.
Manje sisemagcekeni National Forensic Laboratory.
Now, is it correct that items that get into the Forensic Science Laboratory, the ballistic section thereof, must get in there following a certain protocol?
Manje ke kukhona yini indlela efanele ilandelwe uma ukuthi kukhona izinto ezifanele zingene lapha in-National Forensic Laboratory ngisho ke ziqonde endaweni yokuthi zigcine ku-section ye-ballistic?
That is correct.
Yebo kunjani.
And that protocol is that each item that gets into the premises of the Forensic Science Laboratory needs to be registered with the administrative section thereof, so that it is known at that particular moment that such an exhibit is now within the premises of the Forensic Science Laboratory, not so?
Kuyiqiniso yini ukuthi izinto ezingena lapha e-laboratory zifanele zibhaliswe ne-administration yalapha kwa-National National Forensic Laboratory ukuze kwaziwe ukuthi leyo mbukiso leyo ikhona lapho ngaphakathi kwe-National Forensic Laboratory, akunjalo?
That is correct.
Yebo kunjalo.
Thank you. Now let's go back to the Marikana example. Now, Mr. Peters went to Marikana and collected more than 600 firearms.
Peter waya eMarikana ufika walanda izibhamu ezingaphezulu kwamakhulu ayisithupha.
Let's assume more than 600. You might not know the number, but I can tell you it was more than 600.
Nanoma singayizike ukuthi lezi bhamu zazingana kodwa ke asithathe ngokuthi zazingaphezulu kwamakhulu ayisithupha.
But the protocol is, upon his arrival at the Forensic Science Laboratory, he had those firearms registered in terms of the normal protocol, not so?
Kodwa ke uma sefika lapha e-National Forensic Laboratory wafika wazibhalisa lezo zibhamu ngokulandela inqubo ye-laboratory.
That is correct.
Thank you.
But he does not register them one by one.
Kodwa ke ekuzibhaliseni akangazibhalisi ngasinye.
Thank you. But the primary and what do they call it now? The main issue is that upon his arrival there, he registered those exhibits. No?
Kodwa ngithanda ukuthi wathi umefika lapha wafika waziregister lezi bhamu.
I agree.
Thank you.
Vumelana na?
Why is it so that they should be registered?
Yini ke sifanele ziregister ke lezi bhamu?
So that we could be able to track the movement of evidence through the system.
Ukuze kwazi ukulandelela ukuthi ke ama exhibit lawa ahamba ayephi ngaphansi kwesandla sethu.
Thank you. So that the personnel, that is the guys that are working at the Forensic Science Laboratory, are able to track the movement of those exhibits. Thank you. On that note, I'm going to request the court that we have a short adjournment. I can feel that my throat is getting a little bit dry, so it's going to spoil the occasion, and I don't want it to happen. Thank you, madam.
It's 11:12, 12 minutes after 11.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Now, we're back at the Forensic Science Laboratory from Cleveland. Now, the reason why registration must take place, the reason why an exhibit that gets into the Forensic Science Laboratory must be registered, it's to trace the movement thereof. Thank you. Now, Mr. Mangena takes this exhibit to his laboratory when he returned with it from Cleveland and did some tests on it or analyzed it.
His laboratory?
To his workstation within the laboratory.
I see.
So that's just the background.
Ngicazela ukuthi kwenzekani ukuthi uma ngena wathatha lesibhamu wabiya naso la esenze la khona wafike wasihlola.
Thank you. Now, he then prepared an affidavit in terms of which he found that that firearm that he went to fetch from Cleveland is the firearm, according to him, the firearm from which the scene bullet, or the bullet that was recovered at Fort Lores at a place where this incident took place, was fired from.
Manje wasethola ukuthi le nhlamvu le ya elethiwe kusho ukuthi yadutshulwa yiso lesi sibhamu lesi le nhlamvu yatholakala la endaweni ke yobugebengu.
Now that is just by bit of a background of what is happening. Now he came and testified here at court. We know that after having done those analyses, he requested you to confirm them as per his testimony. He also requested 3 of his other colleagues to confirm or to override his findings, which were Fesser, Feljun, and Ntini. That is his evidence, and you and yourself as well as his colleagues.
Manje kuthi ke eseqedileke ukuhlola lesibhamu wayesecela ke uFesser noFelion noNtini nawe ukuthi nibukeze umsebenzi ayewenzile ekuhloleni lesi sibhamu kunjalo.
I hear you.
Thank you. Now, is it correct that to one of the questions that was posed by my colleagues as to the procedure relating to the confirmation of results or their review in circumstances where the chief examiner finds that they are positive and he goes to his colleagues, he finds his colleague confirms his finding of positiveness, then in terms of protocol, then the matter will end there.
Kushuthi ke uma ohlolayo uqala esehlolile wathola umphumela ubiza owesibili ukuthi akazoqinisekisa lo mphumela ngoba uthole umphumela owamukelekayo kusho ukuthi ke uvele kuphelele lapho akunjalo.
Yeah, that is correct, but I must also state that analysts are not prohibited from consulting other analysts.
Yes.
Yebo ngiyavumela lokho kodwa ke abahlazi laba ngatshela ukuthi bangayo thola imbono kwabanye.
Thank you. Just to confirm and authenticate their finding, that's so.
Uqinisekisa ke impumela abayitholile akunjalo.
Is it in respect of verification or confirmation, opinion? I did not get the question well.
Angitholanga kumbuzo. Umbuzo wakho ukhuluma ngokuthola isiqinisekiso noma ukubukeza.
I don't know whether confirm, review, authentication, or opinion, they carry the same meaning. You got to tell us.
Okay, lamagama kumene ngathi achaza into eyodwa mhlawumbe ngasitshela.
The person who verifies the finding will also complete a prescribed form, a worksheet.
Manje kumuntu ke uqinisekisa ke umphumela uzogcwalisa ke form ethize.
There might also be other people who just give opinion, but they don't complete anything, any document. They just give an opinion.
Abanye benza ke bengeza ke bazoletha imbono yabo mayelana nalomsebenzi kodwa akusho ukuthi nabo bafanele bagcwalise iform.
Are you done with your explanation?
Qedile ngichazelo yakho.
That is correct.
Yebo unjani.
Thank you. Now I want to understand your explanation very clear. You say a person that confirms there's a form that they fill in. Let's segmentalize your answer.
The verifier completes a worksheet after he has verified the findings, like I did in this case.
Obukezayo ke ugcwalisa isheet lela abaligcwalisayo njengoba nami ngenza.
Now, will that be the sheet that is presented to him by the chief examiner?
Ushuthi ke leli khasi leli aligcwalisayo ulithola kulona ahlola kuqala.
The sheet is part of the case file.
Yeah.
Leli khasi ke leli aligcwalisayo ke lifakwa ngaphakathi kwefile leli cala.
Thank you. Now, those that would also be involved, you refer to siphoning opinion from them. What is it that they necessarily do?
Manje labo okucelwa kubona ukuthi nabo abafake yabo imbono yini ke abayenzayo?
They can only give opinion after viewing the specimen under the microscope as well.
Ba nika ke imbono yabo emva ukuthi nabo bahlole ispecimen lesingaphansi kwe-microscope.
And they do not fill the specific form that you're referring to.
Utheka baligcwalisi leli form leli okhulume ngalo.
Yeah, on their part is just an informal giving of opinion. It's not a formal thing.
Cha ubona ke nje ukuchaza ukunika ke nje imbono kafushana kona ukunika umbono umbiko ogcwele.
Thank you. Now, as per protocol, the reviewer or the confirmer and subsequent to those who are requested to opine on the results, are they by protocol required to submit affidavits?
Manje ke laba abukezayo nalaba abaletha imbono nje bayaphoqelwa yini ukuthi babhalise ama-affidavit?
Only the original examiner produces an affidavit.
Obhala ke i-affidavit yilo ohlolo kokuqala.
Thank you. Now, I don't want to say that you said that, but from what I got from your explanation of the operation at the Forensic Science Laboratory, there are protocols and there are exceptional circumstances where those protocols get deviated from, not so.
Uthe kukhona imithetho ke ukuthi ngaphansi kwezinye izimo kuyachezwa kuyona. Kunjalo.
That is correct.
Yebo.
Thank you. Now, in terms of the review protocol, that is confirmation of the results, the standing rule is that the chief examiner would approach his colleague in circumstances where there's a positive finding, will approach his colleague, and if his colleague affirms his finding, then his colleague will pen an affidavit, and then his colleague, who is now the reviewer, will just fill in that information in the form and sign and say, in this regard, I totally agree with you. Is that how I understood your explanation of the operation of the business in there?
Ingcazelo yakho ithe inqubo engisebenza ngayo ukuthi ke ohlolayo umhlolo oqala uyahlola bese bhala ke bese fila iform bese bhala affidavit emva kwaloko ke bese cela ke umunye osenza naye ukuthi akabuyekeze lo msebenzi awenzile bese ke uyafika ke naye uyahlola ke bese ke egcwalisa iform akukona lokho engikuzwe uthi kusetshenzwa ngaleyo nqubo.
The affidavit is compiled after the verification process.
Affidavit ke ibhalwa emva kokubuyekeza.
Thank you, that's perfect. Now, what are circumstances that would necessitate a further consultation or a further request of opinion from members in circumstances where the results are positive?
Uma ukuthi ke kutholakala umphumela owamkelekayo yini ke engenza ukuthi kudingeke abanye bazoqhubekela phambili bebukeza?
Can the question be specific, please?
Repeated. Thank you, I'm going to repeat it.
Be specific to this matter.
Cela ukuthi umbuzo ke awuqonde ngqo kulolu daba.
So that I can be able to give a direct answer.
Ukuze ngilethe impendulo eqonde ngqo.
No, Colonel, it does not work out like that. You can't tell me how to ask my questions. Your duty is to answer my questions. You can't tell me what questions must I ask. It does not work out like that. Instead, it works in a different way. I ask questions. If you've got an answer to the question, you answer it. If you feel like you are unable to answer the question, you say, no, yeah, I can't commit myself. Do you understand? Do you understand?
I hear that.
Thank you. Now, the question is, in what circumstances or what would necessitate a chief examiner to approach further members to confirm his positive finding after he had received a confirmation from the reviewer? Angazi noma ngibeka kahle na.
Wait.
Yeah, that's the point. It's not an examiner, as I understand the evidence. It's an analyst. It could be a chief analyst, for instance, but it's not an examiner. Is that the position?
We use both words simultaneously, my
Yes.
lord.
Chief examiner or chief analyst?
They are forensic analysts, but sometimes we call them examiners as well.
Okay, fine.
Thank you,
And
madam.
then who's a verifier? Is there a verifier? Because I heard you saying you did the verification.
A verifier is a forensic analyst who is competent in that, and proficient in that type of examination.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Messi, you can go on.
Thank you, ma'am.
Clarification about.
Yes. Now, my question is, did you understand it, or should I repeat it?
To answer this question,
Yes.
once once the findings have been verified, meaning that the verifier has completed the worksheet,
Yes.
he has appended his signature on the worksheet.
manje ke obuyekezayo ke umese buyekezile waseke egcwalisa ne-worksheet leyo,
The process stops right there. Then the original examiner can compile an affidavit.
umsebenzi ke uyama lapho kusho ukuthi ke umhloli ohlole kuqala usengayibhala i-affidavit.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we are done with the aspect of verification, the integrities and the dynamics involved in there, and thank you very much for your answer. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Mangena, after having analyzed these exhibits, having approached you to confirm his findings, and having prepared an affidavit in terms of section 212 of the Criminal Procedure Act, he then submitted to the state, and then subsequent to that, the court process then started.
Usho ukuthi emva kokuthi ke Lieutenant Colonel Mangena esehlolile wacela ke ukuthi kube nozobuyekeza emva kwalokho kwasebhala ke i-affidavit kwase ke emva kwalokho sekuyiwe enkantolo kanjani?
I hear that.
Thank you, sir. Then fast forward, he came here and testified about how we arrived at his findings.
Wafika ke la wachaza ukuthi wafinyelela kanjani kulesi sinqumo salomphumela uthola.
That is just by way of a background.
I hear that.
Thank you. Now, I must tell you that there seems to be a little dispute between the state and the defense with regard to what Mr. Mangena did.
Kukhona ke impikisano phakathi komshishisi nabameli mayelana nokuthi ngalendlela uMangena asebenza ngayo.
From my side, I cannot.
I'm sorry, just before you answer, I'm not so sure whether I was captured correctly, because I said there seems to be no dispute. I didn't say that there is a dispute.
That's what you said. A little dispute.
Yes, a little dispute. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Bengishilo ukuthi kukhona impikisano kubona sengathi khona impikisano encane.
Yes. But nonetheless, with regard to the firearm and the bullets which he took under his microscope, there's no dispute there. That is what I actually want to put forward to you.
Ngifuna ukubeka phambi kwakho ukuthi akukho mpikiswane mayelana nezinhlamvu azifaka ngaphansi kwe-microscope nesibhamu.
Thank you. Do you understand?
I hear that. I understand.
Thank you. Now, he comes and tells the court that he used the CMS method, consecutive matching striation method, in order to arrive at a finding that told him that the firearm that he retrieved from Cleveland is the firearm from which the scene exhibit or the scene bullet was fired from.
Uthi ke emva kwalokho ke wathi ke wasebenzisa i-CMS uhlobo lwe-CMS ukuthi ke akwazi ukuthi athole umphumela ukuthi le nhlamvu le ephuma endaweni yesigameko yajitshelwa yilesi.
Repeating that you work on test bullet number 9 and test bullet number 4, and Mr. Mangena worked on test bullet number 5. I think Mr. Mangena worked on test bullet number 5 and 9. You worked on test bullet number 4 and 8 in order to compare those with the same bullet. I won't get into that.
Angengene ekutheni wena wasebenzisa inhlamvu le test bullet number 4 and ne test bullet number 8 noma wasebenzisa le number umangena wasebenzisa le test bullet number 5 and 9 ukuthi nifukelele esinqumeni sokuthi iyona lesisibambe sadulale yanhlamvu.
Do you understand?
I understand.
Ithi yebo ngiyakuzwa.
Thank you. Now, on the test bullet, which is test bullet number 9, test bullet number 8, which you worked on, there are certain issues which were raised by Mr. Mangena with regard to the nature of the bullet, which is test bullet number 8 that he worked on. We are narrowing this discussion now.
Manje ukhona izinto aziphawula abamangena mayelana nale test bullet number 8 ayisenza kuyona.
Now, naturally, let me not say naturally, in terms of your ballistic expertise, you decided not to compare test bullet number 8 and test bullet number 9 because they were fired from the same firearm. So it dawned in your mind that it would just be a waste of time because in any event these bullets will be the same, not so.
When I was saying test bullet number 8 and 9,
That is not a correct representation of what I did.
Maybe let me put my question in this way. Upon receipt of the file from Mr. Mangena, you work on test bullet number 4 and on test bullet number 8, and you find that test bullet number 8 was a more convenient bullet on which you could then base your conclusion, and also on test bullet number 4, not so.
Manje uthoma usithola ifile uyithola kubamangena wena ke waseke uqoka ukuthi usenzise test bullet number 4 and number 8 ngoba beziveza umphumela omuhle akunjalo.
I checked all the test bullets,
Yes.
but at the end of the day I settled with TB4 and test bullet number 8.
Yes.
Hayi ngihlola zonke lezi enhlamvu kodwa ke ngaseke ngiqoka number 4 no number 8.
Thank you. That is exactly what I'm saying.
Ikona lokho engishoyo.
Thank you. Now, let's look at test bullet number 8. Did you find any characteristics which you would be able to convey to this court as you looked at that bullet through your microscope? Distinct characteristics.
Manje musubheke le nhlamvu yo number 8 ikhona yini impawu ezithize owazibona kule nhlamvu lena ezingekho kwezinye inhlamvu ongakwazi ukuchazela inkantolo ngaso?
I have already demonstrated that to the court
Hayi bese ngikukhombisile lokho enkantolo.
with respect to test bullet number 8.
Masikhuluma ke ngenhlamvu test bullet number 8.
Yeah, I need to simplify my question, you see. I'm not referring to at the time when you compared the same bullet and test bullet number 8. Now when you look at test bullet number 8 on its own, you see individually, did you manage to identify certain characteristics that would have interested your which would have been of interest in terms of your expertise that you can share this court with?
Ngithi mina le nhlamvu le number 8 angikhulumi ngokuthi wayiqhathanisa nale enye inhlamvu ephuma endaweni yesigaba. Sengikhuluma nge-test bullet number 8 iyodwa nje ukuthi zikhona yini izimpawu ezithize owathi uma uyihlola wazibona kule nhlamvu lena mhlambe kongathanda ukuthi mhlambe wathi usukwazela ukuziqaphela ongafisa ukuthi ke wethule lokho wakubona lapha enhlamvini la enkantolo.
TB8, I selected it because I saw better profile, marking profile on it.
Yes.
But not saying that the others did not have marks completely.
TB8 ngamkhetha ngoba ngabona kukhona izimpawu ezibonakala kangcono kungasho ukuthi lezi ezinye zazingenazimpawu.
So those are the only features of TB8 that you can tell this course about.
Ikona kuphela ukubonakala kule nhlamvu ku number 8 okwehlukayo kwezinye izinhlamvu okwazile ukubona.
That is correct.
Yebo njalo.
Thank you. And what about TB4?
Manje TB4 yena uthini ngayo?
TB4 also, as I have already demonstrated to this court, TB4 also had converging similarities.
Yebo TB4 naye unazo izimpawu ezihlanganayo ndawuthize nale inhlamvu.
But in overall, TB8 was marked. The transfer on TB8 was better in relation to the transfer in TB4.
Kodwa ke ukudluliseka kwezimpawu lapha le nhlamvu number 8 kwakubonakala kangcono kucace kangcono kunokudluliseka kwezimpawu ku TB4.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Mangena told this court that although he could identify certain marks in TB9 which enabled him to compare, which enabled him to find a positive finding when he compared it with the same bullet, but there was a bit of a challenge with test bullet number 9, and I'm going to explain it to you. What is it that he said?
Lieutenant Colonel Mangena uthi yena ke noma ke wabona ukuthi ke uyakwazi ukuthi aqhathanise kalula inhlamvu leyo number 9 nenhlamvu ephuma endaweni yesigameko, kodwa kukhona izinselelo ahlangana nazo mayelana nale nhlamvu number 9.
And this is what, do you follow?
I follow.
Thank you. And this is what he said. Now he says in his determination of the striations on, let me start it this way. He said it is so that he found that there were striations in the exhibit bullet which he could compare with certain striations which were in the test bullet number 9.
Uthi yena khona imigqa ayibona ise kule nhlamvu le ephuma endaweni yesigameko yabona ukuthi yaqhathaniseka nemigqa etholakala kule nhlamvu test bullet number 9.
However, the challenge that he had is that the shape of the bullet was in the form of a concave. Concave, in other words, it had a pitch. It bended. It had a bent inward, a concave, yes. That is what, amongst others, that he told to this court.
Uthi ke kukhona inselelo ayithola yokuthi la obusweni benhlamvu kwakukhona indawo la engathi inokuba nesigodi kancane esenza ukuthi impawu zingadluliseki kahle.
Now, at the area where there is that ditch, he could not find those striations.
Uthi ke mase fika lo mgodi la akhuluma ngawo le migqa le abeyifuna wayengayiboni kahle.
Do you understand?
I hear that.
Ngiyakuzwa.
Now, very interesting. We even gave him, I think the defense even requested him to demonstrate through a spirit level what is it that he was actually saying. Then he practically demonstrated that. When he was in the box.
Nevatel pass ukuthi akakhombise la enkantolo ukuthi yini la echaza ngayo.
Now, he said the bullet had a ditch.
Uthi ke kwakhona umgodi kwakhona lapha ebusweni benhlamba.
Thank you. Now, you used test bullet number 8 to do the same exercise that he was requested to do. The question is, did you find that test bullet number 8 also had a ditch, which prevented the spontaneous transfer of the striations?
Manje ngibuza ukuthi nawe ke wawubona yini lo mgojana la ukhuluma ngawo ukuthi wawubona enhlamvini unumber 9 wawubona yini kule nhlamvu number 8 wena lo wawufakaza ngayo?
I cannot remember all the details around the circumference of the bullet, but what I know is that I found sufficiency to be able to come to the conclusion I came.
Ngeke ngakwazi ukukhumbula yonke imininingwane emayelana nale nhlamvu leya, kodwa engikhumbulayo ukuthi ngathola izimpawu ezilingene ukuthi zingakwazi ukufinyelela emphumeleni wokufananisa.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, immediately what struck me very strange is the fact that Mr. Mangena says, when I analyzed this bullet, it had a ditch. It got fired from the same firearm that test bullet number 8 was fired from. Now, it struck me very strange as to how could it then be so that Mr. Sirero, not Mr. Lieutenant Colonel Sirero, decided to use bullet number 8 when Mr. Mangena actually did his test on bullet number 9, and bullet number 9 had a ditch. Did bullet number 8 have a ditch?
Manje ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi kukhona yini indawo la icindezeleke khona ibullet number 8 ngoba nakho sibona uLieutenant Colonel Mangena yena wakhetha ukusebenzisa inhlamvu leyo number 9, wena wakhetha ukusebenzisa number 8.
My Lord, we want to make objections. Firstly, the witness is Lieutenant Colonel Serrero, not Serrero. And secondly,
I did not get that, my Lord.
The witness is Lieutenant Colonel Serrero, not Serrero.
All right, I don't think that is material.
Yes.
I think it's just neither here nor there. Yeah. When I say Serrero, I actually mean Serrero.
Yeah.
It's a surname that I'm not familiar to, but it's unlike Mahlangu, Bomtsweni, Bomtimunya, and Bomnisi, you see.
Well,
thank you, madam.
Secondly, the evidence of Colonel Mangena is that he tested, he looked at all the test bullets and he positively identified all of them, but that, he chose to use bullet 5 and 9 because the transfer of marks was better. My colleagues keep on referring to the fact that bullet 9 had a ditch. I think the evidence of Lieutenant Colonel Mangena was because this was a CMJ, it's made of soft material, and it's sort of, there's an area where it bent a bit and did not transfer marks properly, but he did not use the word ditch.
Exactly, my lord. I think the court would understand that when I was trying to explain that bend a bit, I said to I actually was struggling to get a proper word, which is the reason why I actually put this witness that in Mr. Mangena's demonstration, he even used a spirit level to demonstrate that at a particular point that bullet had a bend, a ditch. When I say a ditch, I mean that bend.
An indentation. That's the right word.
Yes, indentation, incidentation.
Indentation.
Indentation.
Is it there in ballistics, sir?
That the term exists, my lord.
Okay, fine.
Le igama lekuthiwa indentation kusho ukuthi ke ukwehla kancane ebusweni liyasetshenziswa nakwa ballistic.
Thank you. That bullet had a ditch. When I say ditch, I refer to indentation. Now, I'm sorry.
Leyo nhlamvu leyo inokuhlehliseka okusho ukuthi sithi phecelezi ngesilungu indentation.
Now, did the bullet that you worked on to confirm Mangena's finding had that indentation? I think I need to repeat this word many times, my lord, because it's a bit of a tongue twister. It's indentation.
Manje kule nhlamvu kona uyisebenzisa nako ke lokuhlehliseka noma umgojana lokukhulunywa ngawo esithi phecelezi ngesilungu indentation.
The one that you worked on, bullet number 8.
Kunake ngale nhlamvu wena owasebenza ngayo.
Or bullet number 4.
Sisho ke bullet number 4.
It's bullet number 4 or bullet number 8. Did they have that incidentation?
So, ngisho ke lesi nhlamvu embili number 4 no number 8. Wayenayo yini lokuhlehliseka?
I cannot recall because there are several things, several marks that one is looking at around the circumference of the bullet, so I cannot recall.
Angisakhumbuli ngoba zazi iningi izinto engifanele ngizibheke.
But surely say if it had that indentation, you would have realized it, not so?
Kodwa ke uba kwakukhona lokuhlehliseka lokhu ebusweni benhlamvu wawuyokubona ukuqaphela kunjalo.
I still stick to my answer to say that I cannot recall. I cannot mislead this court and say I saw it in detention or I did not see it. I can simply not recall.
Ukuthi nje angisakhumbula ukuthi ngayibona yini lokuhlehliseka noma ngizange ngikubone. Ukuthi nje into ekhona ukuthi angisakhumbula.
Thank you. Now, that is therefore an indication that your confirmation of Mangena's results were based on exhibits which did not exhibit similar characteristics.
Kodwa ukhona ukuthi umphumela wakho noma wawubheke inhlamvu eyodwa.
No, I mean his confirmation of Mr. Mangena's work to have been positive could not have been proper because they were working on exhibits which did not have similar characteristics. That is what I'm trying to say.
Engishoyo ukuthi ke umphumela wakho noma kangena uzama umsebenzi wakho uqinisekisa umsebenzi wenziwa uMangena wawusebenzisa ke izinhlamvu ezingenazo ezingakhekanga ngendlela efanayo.
I have already explained that the ballistics is not based on the fact that the marks which are visible on even bullets fired from the same firearm, those marks are not microscopically identical. They are similar. They are similar to a certain degree. So what you see on test number 1 is not a photocopy of the surface of test bullet number 5 or number 6. The degree of similarity among the tests will show that they have a common origin. but it does not mean that they are microscopically identical, but they are similar to a high degree.
Ukuthi impawu esizitholayo lapha kulezi inhlamvu ezihlolayo zinezinga elifanayo loku lezi mpawu ezifanayo kusho ukuthi ke uma usibheka ngaphansi kwemicroscope uzobona ukuthi zifana ncimishi.
I can't dispute it, but what I'm saying to you, say, is that the characteristics, the ukufana kwalama bullets, the way in which they look like, was not the same, because Mangena's had that had that ditch, that incidentation. The ones that you work upon, you cannot specifically say they had that ditch or not. So in other words,
ukuchaza ukuthi inhlamvu esetshenziswa uMangena yayinaloku kweshiseka ebesikhuluma ngako uphawu lolu esingaliboni kule nhlamvu lezi wena owasebenzisa usho ukuthi zazingafani lezi inhlamvu ezimbili.
That statement will be correct only if we agree that marks on bullets are microscopically identical.
Singavumelana uma ukuthi siyazwana ngokuthi impawu zinhlamvini ngaphansi kwemicroscope ziyakwazi ukubonakala ukuthi ziyafana.
And it is not the case.
And akunjalo.
You don't seem to understand my question. In other words, you're comparing stars, two stars that not were cooked from the same pot, if I were to say like that. In other words, the other exhibit had a ditch. The ones that you worked upon did not have a ditch. So how could you then have said that they match when the instrument that you're working upon to compare were not similar?
Bungakwazi kanjani ukuthi lezi zinto lezi inhlamvu zazifana noma ukuthi ke inhlamvu lezi ebusweni bazo zasingafani?
The test bullets were all fired from the same firearm.
Ama-test bullet wonke adutshulwa ngesibhamu esisodwa.
But because of reproducibility or transferability of marks, what you find on group number 1 for test number 1, for example, you may not find it adequately on test number 1. I mean to say on group number 1 of test number 2. I'm just making an example.
Letha isibonelo la sokuthi ke nanoma sidutshule isibhamu esisodwa kodwa ke impawu uzozithola lapha ku emseleni number 1 enhlamvini yokuqala akusho ukuthi uzozithola zinjengalowa uzibonile enhlamvini yokuqala enhlamvini yesibili.
That is why you must consider all the groups which are visible on the specimen.
Ufanele ubheke yonke imisele ekhona ekuzungezeni ezungezele lenhlamvu.
So the similarities, the total similarities against the differences will tell you whether or not those specimens have a common origin.
Futhi ke ukufanana konke okukhona nokwehlukana konke okukhona ikona okuzokutshela ukuthi lezi inhlamvu ziyafana yini.
Thank you, sir. I hear your explanation. Now I'm going to put it to you, say, that based on the characters that Mr. Mangena told this court that the bullet number 9 exhibited, on which he based his finding, and the fact that you could not identify those characters, that ditchy character, on the bullets that you worked on.
Lizimpawu kena uMangena azithola enhlamvini leyo number 9 wena ungakwazanga ukuzibona.
You could therefore not have come to the conclusion that the bullet that Mr. Mangena said was fired from the firearm. test bullet number 9 that was fired from the firearm that you went to fetch at Cleveland, you could not have confirmed that those that were fired by you as well could have been fired by the same firearm because of the differences in the structure of the bullet.
Nje kungeke ukwazi ukuthi ke inhlamvu lena ayadutshulwa umangena ngilesibhamu esivele Cleveland lezi ezinye inhlamvu wena wasidubula ungeke usho ukuthi lezi inhlamvu lezi ngempela zasidutshule yiso leso sibhamu.
That is incorrect.
Cha akulona iqiniso lo.
Thank you. Let's proceed. Now, striations. Before I get to that, you said the results with regard to the subjective, the results, you go through a microscope, you find that there are similarities in terms of striations or the pattern matching. The interpretation of those results is subjective, not so.
Sifika musutholeke lemigqa oyibonile usenzisa pattern matches noma SMS usho ukuthi ke ekuletha umbiko mayelana naloko ukuthi umphumela unjani usho ukuthi lokho kuchemile akunjalo.
That is correct.
Yebo kunjalo.
Thank you. Now, would the finding whether a certain mark in a bullet constitute a striation be a subjective one or not?
Manje ukubona ukuthi inhlamvu inomugqa othile owuphawu lokho kuphuma ekutheni ubani obhekile noma kunjani.
The marks that are on the surface of the specimen, they form objective facts.
Manje lokho impawu ke lesi sithola ke etholakala ebusweni benhlamvu into efana nayo nanoma ubani oyibhekile.
So, in other words, you cannot look at the mark and say, from my viewpoint, no, this is not a striation. And somebody comes and say, no, from my viewpoint, this is a striation. In other words, a striation remains a striation, whether you like it or not.
Usho ukuthi ke uma kukhona umugqa okhona umubonile wena akusho angeke kwenzeke ukuthi omunye aphinde azobheka athi cha awukho umugqa lo wena uthi ubonile. Uma kukhona umugqa ukhona umugqa uphikiseka kanjani?
When the marks are there, they are there. So the person who view the specimen, he must interpret what he see on the specimen.
Imigqa ukhona lo mugqa kodwa ke umuntu ofika azobheka ufanele ke abe naloku ukuthi ke azochaza kahle ukuthi yini lento ayibonayo.
If I just use simple terms, maybe yes, I can say what is on the surface of the specimen is decoded. I mean, it's encoded.
So what?
He is encoded.
He must
decode. Yes, he must decode it.
Okay.
Meaning that he must be able to identify it.
Yes.
It is there, but it is now up to the analyst to decode, to identify what he sees.
Yes.
And that will depend on his level of training.
Manje ukuthi akwazi ukubona imigqa ekhona lapha ebusweni benhlamvu lona ke obhekayo ufanele abheke bese enza lokhu kuthiwa isilungu ukudecode kusho ukuthi uguqula lokho akubonayo kube okuchazekayo uma ke esekubonileke lokho ke bese ke iyakwazi ukuthi akuchaze ukuthi kuyini.
That is my question. I am saying the determination of whether a mark as it is seen under a microscope is constituting a striation or not. Is it a subjective thing or is it an objective thing?
Ngibuzayo ukuthi mina uphawu lolu olubonakalayo lapha lokho kuthiwa striation imigqa le ebonakalayo lapha usho ukuthi kuncike kakhulu ekutheni umuntu unobuchwepheshe obungakanani yini.
Sorry, listen. This witness is basically saying the marks
Yes.
are immutable.
Yes.
They are there.
Yes.
They are formed.
Yes.
The only issue is the interpretation or the decoding of the marks, as he says, which is exercised by an examiner. And that will depend on his training proficiency in the interpretation of those marks. But those marks are ineluctable. They are there.
We agree,
That's
my
what
lord.
he says, it's
Yes.
not me.
We agree that those marks are there.
Yes.
But my question is the interpretation
Oh, yeah.
of whether those marks constitute a striation or not.
Yeah.
Is it a subjective thing based on the fact, on the experience and the level of education of that person, or what?
Ukuthi mina ngibuzayo ukuthi ke uma kukhona le migqa ekhona leyo kusho ukuthi kuyikwazi ukuthi ibonakale le migqa lena nokuchaza ukuthi ngempela ikhona kuncikile yini ekutheni lo muntu lo ufunde kangakanani futhi unekhono elingakanani.
Yes, the interpretation, that is the identification of those marks,
Yes.
is subjective in nature.
Thank you.
Cha ngikhuluma ukuhlonza nje leyo migqa ikona kuncike ekutheni lo muntu uqeqeshe kangakanani.
Thank you. Then that simply means that one expert might identify a certain mark as a striation and the other expert might differ with him, not so.
Lokho kuchaza ukuthi khona uchwepheshe ongabona umugqa bese ethi umugqa lona ebefika omunye athi cha ubona umugqa.
Is that what you're explaining?
Ikona lokho kusho.
Yes, if the other expert does not have adequate training, he will not be able to identify what is already on the specimen.
Ya umenge qeqeshiwe ngokulingene lo omunye uchwepheshe angeke akwazi ukubona lokho okukhonjwayo.
This expert went to school on the 1st of January 2024. They were trained for 3 years. And the first expert is 24 years in the service. The other expert has got exactly 24 years. The experience is similar in all material respects. Let's not try to say the other one is less experienced. But now the principle is, one expert can say this is a striation and the other can say no, according to me, this is not a striation, who have the same qualification and the same level of experience. That is the case. That's what we're trying to explain, not so.
Okuchazayo ukuthi ngenza ukuthi kube nochwepheshe abafunde ngokulingana kodwa komunye athi yebo ngiyabona umugqa omunye athi cha nguboni.
The other expert, if he uses the wrong technique, but the wrong technique goes back to skill.
Ya umesenzisa indlela ke engeyinhle kodwa ke masikhuluma ngendlela engenhle sisabuyela vele kulokhu ukuthi uqeqeshwe kanjani.
I cannot escape the question of skill, knowledge and skill.
Angeke sikwazi ukubalekela ke indaba yokuqeqesheka.
Because even the theory we rely upon, that is knowledge.
Yes.
And when you operationalize it, you put it in practice,
Yes.
you are building a skill. So I cannot state anything outside the parameters of knowledge and skill.
Yebo, nale theory siyifundiswayo egcineni siyifunda bese siyoyisebenzisa.
Thank you.
Ikho ngithi asikwazi ukubalekela ukuthi kukhona ukuqeqesheka nolwazi.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. But we are agreeing that subjectively one expert may say this is a striation, the other one may say this is not a striation. The interpretation of what they see there, it's subjective.
Usho ukuthi ngibona kochwepheshe abehlukile omunye angabona bese ethi ukhona umugqa omunye athi ebhekile abone sengathi awukho umugqa ngale ndlela nje ababheka ngokwehlukile.
It may happen, yes.
Thank you.
If the level of skill, knowledge and skill is not the same.
Uma ukuthi ke ulwazi lwabo nokuqeqesheka kwabo akulingani kungenzeka.
Thank you. Now let's come to the method of counting this striation, which are found in same relative area or position.
Asikhulume ngokubala imigqa le ebonakala isendaweni efananayo.
Now in circumstances where the CMS theory of determination is used.
Laphoekusetshenziswa khona ke i-theory lena ye-CMS.
Thank you. Now you had explained what relative position mean in very clear and certain terms.
Usuchazile ukuthi i-relative position noma indawo lapho kutholakala uphawu kuyini.
Now you had introduced your curriculum vitae as, amongst others, you said you were a teacher. You go out and give lectures on ballistic activities and all those things. In other words, you go out and teach students. It dawned to me that you probably, those new members that arrive at your section, you also take them through these theories, not so?
Usuchazile ukuthi ke kusivi yakho achaza ukuthi ke unokuhamba uyahamba uyofundisa nabanye kusho ukuthi makukhona abasha abafika la kule section yethu nabo uyabafundisa njani.
It is correct until I assume the current role. When I assumed the role I'm currently in, yes. I stopped presentations.
Uma sengifikele kulesi sigabeni kusona angisaqhubeki nokwethula izifundo.
Yes, but you are a teacher by blood, if I were to put it that way.
Hayi kusho ukuthi ke kusegazini kwena ukufundisa. Mangabeka kanjalo.
I hear that.
Ngiyakuzwa.
Thank you. Now, how do you count this striation that are found in same relative area?
Manje ke lemigqa lenako oyithola ke isendaweni efananayo uyibala kanjani?
Just take us through that process.
Ngase chazela ke ukuthi inqubo ihamba kanjani.
As I've indicated,
yes,
that I follow the dominant and the old traditional method, yes. Pattern matching method.
Njengoba sengichazile ngisebenzisa inqubo ejwayelekile endala.
Yes. Which is
the pattern matching method.
Pattern matching.
Yile i-pattern matching method kusho ukuthi ke ukuhlola ke ama-pattern abonakalayo.
Yes.
So you will compare the two surface contours of the marks.
Futhi uzohlola ke lobuso la ebusweni balezi inhlamvu ukuthi kukanjani.
Yes.
Within which there will be ridges. That is the raised part of the mark.
Kusho ukuthi kunazaba nala ubuso belenhlamvu kuphakeme khona.
And there will be valleys. That is the bottom part of the mark.
Kusho uzoba khona le ndawo la kunesigodi khona.
Yes.
And then you also study the profile of the general profile of the surface contour.
Kusho ukuthi uzobheka ne profile yobuso benhlamvu.
Yes.
Then you consider the space between the marks, that is the space between the ridges.
Manje kusho ukuthi lapho uzobheka ukuthi amabanga angakanani phakathi kwa lapho kuphakeme khona.
Then you consider the width of the valley.
Kusho ukuthi ke lezi zigodi uzobheka ke nokuthi zinobubanzi obungakanani.
you consider the depth of the valley,
usho nokuthi ke ijule kangakanani ke lesi sigodi,
and those, then you must consider the spatial relationship between the marks.
manje ke usuzobheka ke nokuthi ke amabanga akhona phakathi kwalezi impawu ahleli kanjani.
Yes.
And that must be similar on the left and right.
Yes.
Kusho ukuthi ke kule luhlangothi lokwesokunxele na kulolu kusho ukuthi enye inhlamvu kufanele kube okufananayo nanoma ubheka ngokwesokudla kulenye inhlamvu.
Thank you.
And those marks must be at the same relative position.
Kusho ke lezi mpawu lezi fanele zitholakale endaweni efananayo.
Meaning that when the marks on the exhibit part are on the nose of the bullet, the marks on the test specimen must also be on the nose of the bullet.
Kusho ke uma kuukuthi lelu phawu oluthola lapha enhlamvini ke umbukiso ye-exhibition bullet ufanele uma ukuthi utholakala ekhaleni layo lolu phawu lolubhekile nakule nhlamvu ke le test lolu phawu lolubheke ngale lufanele lutholakale endaweni efananayo ukuthi ekhaleni lale nhlamvu ekuhlolwa ngayo i-test bullet.
Yes.
On the same position, same relative position within the groove or on the land.
Kusho ukuthi kufanele kube sendaweni eqhathanisekayo.
Yes.
So when that is studied, it will determine and you will consider the similarities against the differences that will exist.
Kusho ukuthi uma usubheka kanjalo siyobheka ke ukufanana noma ukwehlukana.
Then you will continue the same exercise throughout the whole circumference of the bullet.
Usho ukuthi ke usuzosungeza yonke ke inhlamvu kulokhu ubheka ngaleyo ndlela.
When correspondence of marks is higher, that is when similarities are higher than the differences.
Uma ke uthola ukuthi kufanana nayo kusezingeni ngaphezulu kakhulu kwelokuhlukana.
We are able to make a positive identification.
Uyabona ukubona ukuthi lezi inhlamvu zinezimpawu ezifanayo.
Yes.
So that is the procedure that I followed.
Iyona ke inqubo engiyilandelile.
Okay, thank you, sir. Maybe you did not understand my question. My question was, in relation to what Mr. Mangena said, use CMS to find a match. This CMS method to find a match. In other words, the usage of striations. Now, I was requesting you to explain to this court, how do you count this striation in order to get the determination that there's a match?
Uthi manje uthi ayena usenzise i-CMS ushuthi ubala imigqa. Ufuna ukwazi ukuthi usenzise kanjani ke nge-CMS le ukubona ukuthi ke kunokufanana kulezi inhlamvu.
In other words, how do you count this striation to constitute, for them to constitute a match?
Manje ke wena ke uyibala kanjani ke le migqa lo ohlangana nayo lapha ukuze uthi wena yebo iyafanana?
I did not use the CMS approach.
Ngizange ngisebenzise i-CMS approach.
Yes, that I do understand. I mean, as an expert, you said the pattern matching and the CMS method are mutually inclusive. In other words, there's nothing wrong in one member using a pattern match, and there's nothing wrong in the other member using a CMS to do a determination or to do an analysis. Now, as an expert, I'm requesting you to assist this court. When you are using CMS as a method of comparison, how do you then count this striation?
Uthawa le-pattern matching ne-CMS zenza into efananayo. Manje ke ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi njengochwepheshe wena ububala kanjani uma usebenzisa i-CMS ukuthi imigqa uyibala kanjani ukuthi iyafanana?
The approach of CMS, as I understand it, although I did not apply it, or I don't apply it, it states that there should be consecutive...
Let's come here. You say you never used CMS in any of your analysis.
Uthi-ke wena awuzange uyisebenzise i-CMS ekuhlaziyeni kwakho?
I use pattern matching because it is a standard method that we
Ngisebenzise
use.
i-pattern matching ngoba inqubo le ejwayelekile esiyisilandelelayo.
Lieutenant Colonel, please understand my question. My question is, are you saying that in any of the experiments, that in any of the analysis that you did, you never used CMS?
Awuzwisambuzo wami ukuthi wena uthi awukazi usebenzisa i-CMS kulokuhlaziya obukwenza?
I use pattern matching as it is a method that is as it is a method that we use currently at office.
Ngisebenziseke i-pattern matching ngoba kuyile ndlela eyinqubo esenza ngayo.
So am I then correct to understand you to mean that there's no analysis that you ever used where you used CMS as a method of analysis? You used only up to this stage. You had been using only pattern matching because that's a required standard of the theory that should be used.
Ochazayo-ke ukuthi wena awukazi uyisebenzisa i-CMS ukuyofikela namhlanje ukuthi wena ubusebenzisa kuphela i-pattern matching method ngoba ile method eniyisebenzisayo.
From my side, yes, I use pattern matching.
Thank you.
Ehlangothini lwami senzisana i-pattern matching.
Thank you. My Lord, I realize that we left with, it's actually 1:45, that is 15 minutes to 1 o'clock. I don't know, there is something that is bugging me here. I don't know, may we take an early adjournment, my Lord? I don't know what is happening. I feel like I'm getting a bit dizzy.
What do you mean early adjournment? You mean we must adjourn for the day?
No, my Lord, for a lunchtime. There's something that is making me dizzy, I don't know what it is. I want to be very sincere, man.
Too much muti.
Maybe, my Lord. And I can see where it comes from.
Yeah.
Thank you, my Lord.
Maybe even the judges got bells here.
Yes.
2 o'clock.
Thank you.